Have you ever been driving alone at night and felt like someone was following you? Not just anywhere, but perfectly matching your speed, your every turn, like they were watching you. Imagine that feeling, alone on an empty highway, headlights in your rearview mirror that never leave, never blink, never look away. That's exactly what happened to Dylan and Ashley. And by the end of the night, they would wish they hadn't noticed. It was around 11:45 p.m. when Dylan and his girlfriend Ashley left a friend's house in rural Arizona. They had about a 3-hour drive home, most of it through long stretches of desert highway. Dylan actually liked night driving. It was cooler, the road was quiet, and there was something calming about headlights sweeping across empty asphalt. For the first half hour, it was just them, the faint music on the radio, and the endless black sky sprinkled with stars. Then Ashley noticed it. A pair of headlights appeared in the rearview mirror. At first, it didn't seem strange. Other cars used this highway. But something about it was off. The car didn't speed up to pass them. It didn't hang back far either. It stayed perfectly paced. 10 minutes passed, then 20. The car was still there. "Maybe they're just going the same way," Dylan muttered. But when he changed lanes, the car did too. When he slowed down, the headlights stayed the same distance behind. Ashley, who had been scrolling on her phone, sat up straighter. "Okay, that's weird," she whispered. The highway stretched endlessly, lined only with cacti and the occasional road sign. No exits, no towns in sight. Just two cars, one in front, one behind. Dylan tried speeding up. 80. 90. The car behind him stayed locked in. Not too close to be tailgating, not far enough to feel casual. It was almost precise, deliberate. Ashley's unease grew. "Dylan, what if they're following us?" He forced a laugh, but his grip on the steering wheel tightened. "Nah, that's just in movies." Still, an hour later, the headlights were still there. Finally, they spotted a gas station sign glowing faintly ahead, the only building they'd seen for miles. Dylan took the exit, heart pounding. If the car followed, they'd know for sure. He pulled into the lot, parking under a flickering light. And sure enough, the car turned in too. But instead of pulling up to a pump, the vehicle coasted slowly across the lot and stopped on the far side, engine idling, lights still on. Dylan and Ashley froze, staring. "Don't get out," Ashley whispered. They sat there for 5 long minutes, pretending to check their phones, waiting. The car didn't move. The windows were too tinted to see inside. Finally, Dylan turned the ignition again. "We'll just keep driving. Forget this." He pulled back onto the highway. Heart in his throat, he checked the mirror. For a moment, the road was empty. Relief washed over him. Then, like something out of a nightmare, the headlights appeared again. The time of a drug fort was almost 2 a.m. Both of them were trembling. Dylan considered pulling over to let the car pass, but every instinct told him not to stop. Ashley suggested calling the police, but service bars on her phone were gone. The desert felt endless, like the road itself was trapping them in place. That's when it happened. The car behind them surged forward, its brights snapping on, flooding their mirror. It drew closer and closer, riding their bumper. Dylan's chest hammered as he gripped the wheel. Then, just as suddenly, it slowed again, drifting back to its perfect distance. Almost like it wanted them to know, "We're here. We're not leaving." Ashley began to cry softly, whispering, "Why us? Why us?" Hours seemed to pass, but in reality, it was only another 30 minutes before they saw another sign of civilization. A small 24-hour diner near the highway. Dylan swerved into the lot, desperate for people, for safety. They parked quickly and ran inside, leaving the car unlocked, not caring. The warm light and smell of coffee was almost overwhelming. A lone waitress looked up, startled. "You two look like you've seen a ghost," she said. They explained in rushed voices about the car, the headlights, the stalking. The waitress frowned, glancing out the big diner window. "There's no one out there," she said. Confused, Dylan ran to the glass. The lot was empty. No car, no headlights, nothing. But when he walked back outside, cold night air brushing his skin, he saw something that made his stomach drop. On the trunk of his car, smeared in dust and dirt, were handprints. Small, childlike handprints. It was a warm summer evening when 4 friends, Ben, Claire, Tyler, and Jessica, decided to drive from their college town to a lakeside cabin for a weekend getaway. The sun was setting as they left the highway. Ben, who loved finding hidden shortcuts, spotted an unmarked dirt road branching off between 2 hills. "Trust me, this will shave at least 30 minutes off the trip," he said confidently. Claire hesitated, but Tyler laughed. "It's an adventure, come on." Jessica shrugged, putting on some music. "As long as we don't end up in the middle of nowhere, I'm fine." They turned onto the dirt road, which quickly became narrow and overgrown. The trees arched overhead, making a dark tunnel as twilight faded into night. At first it was fun, wind whipping through the open windows, the car bouncing along the uneven surface. But after 20 minutes, the first signs of unease appeared. "There are no signs, nothing," Claire said, glancing nervously out the window. Tyler chuckled. "It's just a shortcut, relax." But as the minutes stretched into an hour, the road stayed the same. No signs, no streetlights, not even the glow of distant houses. Even stranger, the road seemed endless. An hour later, the friends noticed the gas gauge hadn't moved. "Wait, that can't be right," Ben muttered. "I just filled up this morning." Jessica frowned. "How is that possible? The tank shouldn't last this long." The silence in the car grew heavy. The headlights cut through the trees, but the trees, the landscape, it all looked exactly the same as it did an hour ago. The friends began to feel disoriented. Every turn seemed familiar. Every stretch of road mirrored the last. Suddenly, the car hit a patch of mud and skidded slightly. Claire slammed on the brakes. "Maybe we should just turn back," she said, panic creeping into her voice. Ben tried to turn around, but the car seemed to slide on the road like it had a mind of its own. Every direction felt wrong. Every attempt to retrace their path led them deeper into the same unchanging landscape. Tyler's bravado vanished. This isn't normal. Something's wrong." Hours, or maybe minutes they couldn't tell, passed. The friends' phones had no signal. The music on Jessica's phone skipped and distorted, almost like static. Then, without warning, the trees seemed to close in tighter, forming an almost solid wall of darkness around them. The headlights flickered. The car's engine made a strange, low growl that wasn't there before. "It's like the road is alive," Claire whispered. The car rolled along the dirt track, but now it seemed slightly uphill, though no hill existed before. Every time they looked behind, they thought they saw faint shadows moving just beyond the tree line. Too quick to be animals, too large to be birds. Tyler suggested stopping the car to figure out their bearings. Ben reluctantly agreed, parking on a patch of uneven dirt. But as soon as they got out, the silence became oppressive. The forest was unnaturally still. No wind, no rustling leaves, just darkness. Jessica shivered. We shouldn't have left the car. Then they heard it. A soft, rhythmic crunching, like footsteps circling the vehicle. They froze. The sound moved with them, never getting closer, never farther. They climbed back into the car, slamming doors and locking them. Ben tried the engine. Nothing. The car wouldn't start. The radio crackled to life with distorted, whispering voices, just barely audible. Drive. Drive. Don't look back. Panicked, they slammed a car into gear. Miraculously, the engine roared to life. They sped forward, but the road never ended. The same trees, the same bend in the road, stretching endlessly. Hours, maybe days, they couldn't tell. Their eyes strained in the headlights. Every mile they drove, every desperate turn they made, led them back to the same patch of road, the same eerie bend, the same shadows beyond the trees. Sarah, Jake, and Emma had been driving for nearly 12 hours from their college town to a small lakeside cabin for a weekend getaway. The sun had long since disappeared, leaving only the dull glow of the dashboard lights and the occasional headlight of passing cars to illuminate the highway. "I'm done," Sarah admitted quietly, rubbing her temples. "I can't drive another mile." Jake glanced at her, then at Emma, who had been staring silently out the window. "Hold on," he said, squinting at a distant light flickering through the trees. "Looks like a gas station, or maybe a motel." Emma turned sharply. "Are you serious? That sign looks ancient. The lights are flickering, and the letters barely work." Jake shrugged. "We're exhausted. What's the worst that could happen?" Sarah hesitated but eventually nodded. She was too tired to argue. They turned onto a gravel driveway winding between thick pines, the crunching of tires against loose stones echoing in the otherwise quiet night. The sign read, "Blue Pine Motel, rooms available." The neon letters buzzed weakly, half-lit, giving off a faint blue glow. The sight of it filled them with a strange mixture of relief and unease. As they pulled into the small lot, the first oddity became clear. There was no one around. No car in the parking spaces, no movement inside the building, not even the faint hum of a television. Emma whispered, "Maybe they're just away for the night." Sarah felt a cold knot of anxiety form in her stomach. "Yeah, maybe, but it feels off." The trio hesitated near the front desk, which was tidy and pristine. Pen, ledger, small bell, but completely abandoned. No receptionist, no chair slightly moved. Nothing. Jake flipped through the ledger. The names of previous guests were written in neat script. Some dated back decades, some only weeks old. The mix of time frames made no sense. "Well," Jake said finally, taking a set of brass keys from the counter. "Let's just grab a room. Room 7. The room itself looked perfectly normal. A small, tidy bed with a nightstand and lamp. A bathroom with clean towels. And a faint lavender scent lingering in the air. For a moment, they all sighed in relief. "This isn't so bad," Jake muttered, trying to lighten the mood. Emma sat on the edge of the bed, uneasy. "It's just, I don't know. Something about this place feels wrong. Like it's too perfect, too quiet." Sarah nodded, though she was relieved to be off the road. "We just need to rest. That's it." As the night deepened, subtle oddities began to creep in. A soft creaking echoed from the hallway. At first they ignored it. Then a faint thump, like someone dragging something heavy, reverberated through the corridor. Their hearts jumped. Emma whispered, "I told you. This is wrong. Before anyone could respond, the phone on the nightstand rang once. Sarah picked it up. Static hissed in her ear. After a tense pause, the line went dead. Jake tried to rationalize it. Old phone, maybe interference. Nothing to worry about. But the feeling of being watched only intensified. The door to the room across the hall slowly creaked open, then snapped shut, though there had been no breeze. Shadows flickered along the walls, warped and twisted by the dim light. Emma's voice shook. I can't sleep here. I can't. By 2 a.m., the motel seemed alive in a way that defied reason. The bed creaked as if someone had sat on it. The shower turned on unexpectedly, cold water gushing. The lights flickered repeatedly, plunging the room into darkness for moments that stretched like hours. Jake laughed nervously, though the sound lacked conviction. Old buildings make noises, that's all. It's fine. Sarah rubbed her eyes. It doesn't feel fine. Something is wrong. They decided to leave. Heart pounding, Sarah grabbed the keys and rushed to the car. It was exactly where they had parked it. Relief surged, but only for a moment. Across the lot, the motel looked different. The windows were dark, some boarded up. The paint had peeled, rotted edges of doors visible where none had been before. Even the flickering neon sign had gone out completely. Emma gasped. It wasn't real. It wasn't real. Sarah tried the ignition. The engine roared to life, but the highway ahead twisted unnaturally, unfamiliar curves appearing where there had been none. Every attempt to retrace their route led them back to the same empty lot, the same fading building. Hours, or maybe only minutes, passed in disoriented terror. Exhaustion and fear blurred together. Every attempt to rest was interrupted by small horrors, doors opening and closing in empty rooms, footsteps echoing down hallways that weren't there, the faint flicker of a neon light teasing them from the distance. Sarah noticed shadows moving between the trees along the roadside, elongated, unnaturally thin, vanishing whenever they tried to focus. Keep driving, she whispered, gripping the wheel. Just keep going. Finally, as dawn threatened to break, they found themselves once again at the motel parking lot. The building loomed silently, bathed in weak morning light. It looked normal, almost welcoming, but the atmosphere had changed. As they approached, Sarah realized something impossible. The motel had no doors. Windows were black, featureless voids. Shadows stretched across the walls in ways that made no sense. The neon sign flickered one last time before vanishing completely. Jake's voice trembled. We need to leave, now." They sped onto the highway, desperate to escape. Even as the sun rose, familiar landmarks never appeared. Days later, they tried to retrace the route, asking locals about the Blue Pine Motel. No one had ever heard of it. Maps showed nothing but dense forest. Even now, Sarah swears she sometimes sees a flickering blue neon sign in the distance on long drives at night. It waits for the tired, the naive, for anyone willing to stop.